Line Strength and Conditioning Podcast. Today I have a special guest, Mike Hernandez. Mike's out of Tampa area. Me and Mike met a long time ago. Really can't even remember the exact date or year. I know it was quite a while.
2012, 2013.
Yeah, it's been a while. Mike is a Marine Corps veteran, a combat veteran from Iraq and Afghanistan, or just Iraq?
Yeah, both.
Both. Okay. Mike also he is a yogi, which is a yoga professional. He does quite a few different things. Strongman.
Oh yeah.
You've done like what do you call it with the not the circus, but with lifting the people up?
Oh, it's acro. Yeah, I kind of like consider myself a jack of all trades, master of none. You know.
All right, so let's get into it, Mike. Let's hear what you got, man. I know you got quite a bit of experience with a little bit of everything.
Yeah, I've been teaching CrossFit since 2010, but I've also been a strength and conditioning coach for 12 to 15 years now. Trained a little bit under Louis Simmons out in Ohio. Mm-hmm. Then ran through myself through powerlifting community, the strongman community, CrossFit community as well. I still do a little bit of CrossFit, but I do a lot of PT for a lot of polytrauma people from the VA. So people who have multitude of traumas, like if it's not head injuries, knee, back injuries. It's kind of like my small passion there. I just deal with people from the VA because we're here in Tampa. We have one of the leading spinal cord institutes in the VA is here in Tampa. So I get a lot of my athletes from there. Do a lot of stroke patients, stuff like that. I was, go back. I did 8 years in the military. Got out, went to college. Got my bachelor's in biology. It's in science, bachelor's in science and biology. Got my CSCS and then went to just started training people and training myself really because I didn't think that I was able to do any of the stuff that I did, there. Got into Team RWB where we met.
Right.
Did a lot of stuff with them. I was actually as a veteran outreach director with Blaine Smith over at Team RWB. Was the headquarters here in Tampa at the time. And it's neat to see the evolution of the shit that I got into. I guess my mind gets bored, but I guess I was just looking for the right part of wellness to get into, right? And I kind of found this niche that I'm in now as a yoga teacher. I also am a exposure and breathwork coach. So I help people with resilience in their lives, and the idea to by exposing people to heat and cold, help generating some resilience in their lives will help them with life in general. And it seems done it for me. It's done it for a lot of people that I've been involved with. I have about, close to 100 guys that I've done my Sovereign Saturdays with. And a lot of them are just living better lives. And it's cool to see. But yeah.
How'd you get involved in that? Heat and cold?
So I did my training with Wim Hof. With the Wim Hof training and structure training in Poland for 2 weeks. It was like after my divorce, I was just like, I'm gonna go do all these things, and went up doing that and got used to cold exposure and heat exposure. Heat exposure came later on, but mostly cold exposure and learning how to use my breath to help regulate not only my emotions but like my heart rate and how I reacted to things. And with yoga too, it helped with meditation and all that other stuff. So like Annie Okerlund, who runs Exalted Warrior, she started Exalted Warrior with an admiral in the Navy. I can't remember the admiral's name. He'll probably punch me in the face for that, but it's all right. But they started Exalted Warrior, and I hopped on. And it took me about 7 years and a lot of heartache to even get involved in yoga. While my yoga mom, Annie Okerlund, was telling me, like, you probably should have gotten yoga a long time ago. I was like, thanks, Annie,
Why is that? Why did she say that?
Well, through going through yoga teacher training and going through yoga, just you learn some breath work there, but you also learn how to settle the mind a little bit, learning how to meditate, learn how to use a movement practice to settle down your emotions and your reactions to things. It's almost like a good way to analogy, because you're in a strength conditioning and also like CrossFit. When we do hard shit and wear out that part of the body, and we get into this space where it's just like everything's calm, that's our opportunity to start doing like real work for ourselves, mental wise, right? We'll start working on our breath, and then working on how to corral our emotions and be in more control, right? And I think a lot of, you can attest this, especially veterans in total. I mean, you did 30 years as a, corrections officer. I can only imagine all the shit you've been through. But we don't have, I think I put this analogy last time we had talked. A good analogy for this would be, if we have, let's say I bring a cup that I have, and this cup is our ability to, off gas ourselves rather. If I put that under a faucet, fitness or yoga or any activity that would empty that cup so we can have some, peace, the faucet is what that regulation is. So like, think about all the workouts we do that help us just like we feel more at ease because we just got rid of all that nasty energy. The faucet, those workouts are our ability to shut this faucet off. But after a while, no matter how much you work out, no matter how much you do yoga, no matter how much you meditate, no matter how much you things that keep hitting us in life, we start losing function of actually shutting that faucet off. And after a while, that faucet just stays running, and we just have no way of emptying the cup anymore. Right. So through exposure, through yoga, meditation, through even working out, these are all different ways we can shut that faucet off. But after a while, if we don't know how to physically regulate that faucet, it starts overflowing, and we have nothing to do but just like, that's where we have a lot of guys with problems on SSRIs or problems with this depression. It's a problem. It's a human it's also just a human condition. It's not just regulated to just vets and regulated to, it's just humans in general. Like, it's just a human condition problem. It's not like vets are just, that demographic fits that whole thing.
Right. Now, now I know with your experience in the Marine Corps for 8 years, mind talking about that as far as like now all that trauma that would kind of push you towards what you're doing now?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's all that trauma, no matter what I went through combat wise, or even like even just going through training and stuff like that, it was just a freaking hard take. But we were just children back then. We didn't know how to deal with any of this shit. You know what I mean? We're all like in our 20s. Like this, you go into the military, you're 18, they hand you a gun, and they're like, all right, here's a target, shoot at that. And like, by the way, also, here's your bayonet, and you fix it. Just make sure you just yell kill really loud, and hopefully that thing dies. I'm like, well, okay. So you worked, even in the military, you worked through a whole big remapping phase. You go into combat, and you finally were training as a reflex, not so much an action, right? So like when you're like, if you're in, say the Battle of Fallujah, right? There was no point where I had time to even think. It was just, I had done things so repetitively that my body just took over, right? So my body just took over. And honestly, in yoga, they call that a flow state, right? You've done things so many times over and over again that you just know what to do. You know how to get there. You know what to do, but nobody talks about the aftermath. We never had nice briefs after. We're like, hey guys, let me hold your hands and talk about what the hell we just went through, because that was fucking, that was terrible. We lost some guys out there. If Buddy Jesus came out there and been like, hey, this was fucking, I know we lost some men out there, but it was the greater good. Like nobody talks about that shit. Nobody says, you had a chaplain that would go around and be like, so tell me how you feel. It's like, motherfucker, I feel terrible. Like I just lost some of my best friends, and we just mowed down a whole town. I don't think that was okay. But nobody talks about that. Nobody talks about how these are all just kids going into combat. And I have a good friend, Matthew Griffin, who owns Combat Flip Flops. He wrote a really nice article. It got him banned off a bunch of sites. It was called "Letters from the Taliban," and it was really interesting. And it was the truth, like why we were overseas and why all this, and how we had, the dogs of war had leashes on them and couldn't like do the job that they were meant to do. So it was just like, it was a bunch of bureaucracy and just, no different than we're dealing with right now, but now I feel like it's 10 times worse,
Yeah,
but
definitely.
yeah. So, dealing with, from then, all that trauma was only compounded by to be honest, a lot of our issues start when we were children, and the military only exacerbated that. When I got out, I was also, I was in the fire department. I was a paramedic as well, and I saw a lot of more shit. I thought I can, instead of dropping a gun and going on a fire truck, I can help more people. But it was just like, you see what's on the street here, and you're just like, holy shit! None of these people fucking give a fuck about their lives.
One battlefield to the next. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny though. It's like I've been out of the Marine Corps forever, but when I started going to therapy through the VA, one of my psychologists, she's like, you know what, Glenn, you're in the perfect profession. You went from a battlefield to another battlefield inside a prison, so it's like the ideal job for you. I'm just like, not really. The trauma. And people think like, working in prison, inmates gets convicted. They come to the whatever prison they're going to. We lock the door and we throw the key away and walk away and don't have to deal with these guys. And you're dealing with these guys 24/7. Doesn't matter what time of night it is. You're still 2:00 in the morning. They're in there banging on the doors. And they want attention. They're human beings. They want someone to talk to, or they're venting or whatever they're doing. And it's just like, man, it's just like one thing after another. It's just like, holy shit, this is a lot. And now that I'm retired, after 28 years of being inside prisons, it's like, man, you look back now and you're just like, wow, like how the hell did I survive that one?
I could only imagine, right? Like most of the people in prison are just like, they did a lot of shit at a younger age that fucked their whole lives up, right?
And just stuck in jail. Yeah.
Now they're stuck in jail. Now you have this human entity sitting in this fucking, I don't know, maybe a 5x5 fucking square box.
Yeah.
I don't know if it is that, but at the same time, it's like, I can only imagine what that guy's thinking his entire life, sitting in that fucking box. Just like, there's a guy I follow called Sadhguru, and he talks about visiting prisons, and he's a big yogi, and he's on the internet. I post him a lot on my Instagram. But he talks about in one of his books how he went into prisons, and he talked to a lot of these guys who just like were just spent like 10 years in, right? They were doing 10 years and they did something when they were like 18 or 20. Yeah. And like most of all the stuff that these people have done are just crimes of passion, right? Or crimes of just like they've had some kind of like emotion, they felt some way about something or else, and just did bad things at one point. But the more time they spent there, the more they realized that as they got older, as they just like, I didn't want to do that. Like I just didn't know. I had a group I was following, or I had like these bad situations that I was in. I felt like I had no choice, or like he was saying, was like these guys just. Can be there's people that the prison system can be rehabilitated, but at the same point, it's like I don't think we're giving these guys enough. Like I don't understand. Maybe you can answer this. I don't understand why we took away work from these guys. Like,
it's funny. It's like I know in the federal system we had this thing called Unicorn Prison Industries, where they build furniture, military uniforms, military equipment, stuff like that, and they're just like I think it was about probably a good 10 years now. They said, hey, we're taking jobs away from Americans. It's like, well, a lot of people don't want to do that job. It's not like the inmates are getting paid a bunch of money. These guys are they might be making $1.50, $2, if that, an hour. So it's not like it's some big difference. But they took a lot of things away, and the prisons I was at, a lot of times, man, it was so violent we didn't have time to have them go to work because we were either there's a homicide or multiple serious incidents where multiple inmates were assaulted or staff were assaulted, and we had to be secure. We had to be safe. Make sure everyone was safe and just keep the animals caged up for a while.
Yeah, I can only imagine. That's what I think that a lot of them have been reduced to. And honestly, if I were to be perfectly honest, it's no different than some of the people in the military. They're just caged animals. In the Marine Corps, when we're deployed, they're like, hey, we have plenty of bullets, but we don't have enough food and water. You're just like, what? Like, how are we supposed to operate without enough food and water? Like, well, hopefully this makes you angry enough to fight for more food and water. I was like, oh shit. Well, I have there's no recourse here for me to just fucking do more fighting. But yeah, it's such an interesting whole societal mix that we have now. I think a lot of people, and I hate using the word woke, but other people are just waking up to the fact that like they just feel like numbers and like ones and zeros now, right? We just feel like we're not cared about. So, and I think Jordan Peterson, there's a conversation with Jordan Peterson on one of his websites where he had a conversation with somebody, and he's just a new age philosopher, just rewording old philosophy to what it is now. He's like, and I couldn't agree more. I was like, it's so easy to look at to worldly things, right? We want to fix all these worldly problems, but those same people who want to fix all these worldly problems don't know what the fuck to do with themselves.
True. Yeah. Or they're a complete mess.
Yeah.
They should have they shouldn't be speaking about anything because they're just like, their life is so fucked up.
Exactly. And I'm just like, and I was like, man, it's like, there's several different proverbs that are even like things that philosophers said that say almost the exact same thing. It's like, if you feel like you have such a empowered self, your empowered self has such a prowess to go towards those things that were so overly worldly things, you obviously haven't looked further enough in. So like, and my yoga teacher, Annie, would tell me that shit all the time. And I went through yoga teacher training was the biggest like aha moment. I mean, I think, when when you go to boot camp, they ask you what mass you want to go to, right? I was born and raised Catholic, and I literally within combat lost my faith like almost immediately. And I was just like, nothing I'm praying to is fucking making anything difference other than me just fucking digging deeper, So when I went to yoga teacher training, it was interesting because the teacher who taught the training was like, she looked over at me and she goes, Mike, it's not that I'm trying to help you. This is what she said. She goes, I want you to surrender to the knowledge that, there is something inside of you that's deeper that could offer more to yourself and other people. And I was like, what do you mean surrender? I was like, oh, motherfucker, I don't surrender to shit.
Yeah.
But in a way, there's power in it, meaning for us like vulnerability, right? And that's a big word and just culture for men in general, not just like military or correction officers or just like, police officer or anything like that. There's power in vulnerability. And I've seen it firsthand. I've seen it in myself and I've seen it in others. What she was really trying to tell me is like, she was talking about divinity. And what she told me was like, I'm not trying to help you find divinity out there. I'm really trying to find divinity in yourself. I was like, what the fuck? I'm just like, no, I don't like, nothing's going to help me. She's like, yeah, you're right. Nothing's going to help you. You're going to help yourself. That's your inner divinity. I was like, oh. So it was like a defining moment in my life. I was just like, shit. It's like, oh, you're saying all my life depends on me. It was like, she's like, yeah. I was like, oh, I already knew that. But like, yeah, did you though? But like all my worldly problems are all my fucking own problems. And it was kind of the same moment I had. It was an aha moment like I had with Blaine when I first met Blaine. And I think I talked about this last time, but I feel like we we as veterans, we as correction officers, we as police officers or fire department, we label ourselves and use that ideology as a way of life, right? And what Blaine taught me was, when I first met Blaine, he invited me over to do some workouts at his house. We lived not that far from each other, and he said, we're getting ready for the workout, and then I saw his son Dalton at the time. He was maybe 4 or 5, and he was running across the house with his dad's cami blouse on, right? And I was looked at it. I spotted him once, and he just had this whole tower of power. I didn't even know Blaine was in the military at this time. I didn't know. I was just like, it's when I first met him, right? And I was like, oh shit. It's like, Blaine, who's his dad? I was like, oh yeah, I was in the military, like, and I was a fucking SF guy, and I did all this. I'm like, what? He's like, if for for all of us in the military, he was like the guy we look up to, as the guy's like, oh shit, like this guy's a badass motherfucker, like not to be fucked with, like the quiet professional you don't hear about, And he goes up to me and he's like, Mike, I want to tell you something. I was like, what you did in the military is not who you are, it's what you did. And that just stuck with me. And like, I was the typical veteran. I had a veteran fucking hat, some fucking veteran t-shirt on, some fucking cargo shorts. Like I was a typical veteran. I was like, and I just had like stuff, like stickers of shit like on my fucking tag. And I was like, as soon as I heard that, I was like, it was almost like I lost a little bit of my character, right? But it wasn't a bad thing. It was a good thing. It was like, it helped me see things in a different light, not through just one lens. I just had to it helped me really, it was kind of like almost like a small crisis where I was like, who the fuck am I? Like, who am I as a person? Like, who am I? I'm not Mike the fucking Marine. I'm not Mike the fucking firefighter. I'm not Mike the fucking trainer. I'm just like, who am I as a person? What do I want in life? And that moment was like probably one of the most pivotal moments in my life, other than going to yoga teacher training, when I finally found like myself, settle into what I truly wanted in life. And what I truly wanted in life was just to be fucking live a happy, joyful life and just be more present with myself and others, Mm-hmm. So like, that was kind of like, as my yoga teacher training lifted off and I was teaching more of Exalted Warrior, I got into another group called American Yogi about 4 years ago. I was actually working in the ER with a friend of mine named Mike Sussman. Him and his brother had started a yoga brand called American Yogi. And they had their first yoga festival in Southern Pines. Yeah, so we're by Fort Bragg. Mm-hmm. I had never been in like Southern Pines before, and you walk into this town, it's like literally it's full of fucking SF, Ranger back guys, Delta guys, and it's just like, it's such a nice town. Like I walked in and I was like, people were saying hi, hello, smile on their face. I'm like, where the fuck am I right now? These people are happy for some odd reason. It's just a small town built by like really good people who just don't want to like deal with everybody's bullshit. It's very, very nice. But they had their yoga, Nick took me there. Nick Karras took me there. He was another yoga teacher through Exalted Warrior, and he's the one that I was going through some really fucked up shit with one of my ex-wives, and he helped me, find this way, and met these guys, and I found I found some peace, mm-hmm. And it kind of started a whole new chapter in my life, finding my mindset, finding my my direction, finding purpose. Right? Finding purpose. I literally just took the culmination of my entire life. It almost felt like all the things that I did culminated to one point, and all the experience I gathered along the way just funneled right into this one piece. And it just clicked for me that time. And then I started teaching yoga, to veterans on base, to veterans at the VA, to veterans. And then I'm also training people. So I'm using my breath work stuff to help them with that. And And then I just came up with an idea of like, I need to run like some style of like men's group. And I went to Kodawari and Annette. I wanted to do this similar thing. And I wanted men to find their power in themselves, because and the only way to get there for a lot of guys is being vulnerable. And how do I allow men to be vulnerable? And I was just like, I have to create a container, a safe container for these guys, almost like the Marine Corps, right? Like almost like the military. Create a safe container where guys can trust each other enough to like have a moment to like tell them what the fuck is really going on in their lives that really are bothering the fuck out of them. And man, it just skyrocketed. I'm on my like 9th Sovereign Saturday now, and I'm about to do my first retreat in January. It's incredible. I mean, and you'd be surprised once you create that safe container for guys to share how they just want to. They just want to they want somebody to listen to. And if I can tell that to anybody, is just be an good active listener, because if it's not the wives out there, if it's not the men out there, just your friends, like don't give them advice. They just want somebody to fucking listen to. And that's everybody. And it's everyone, not just men, just women in general, but I specifically deal with men right now and how that's impacted, I don't know, probably like 100 and some men's lives already. Wow. Is astronomical. And I'm talking about ages from like 68 to all the way to like 22. Like, and I can only imagine if I had this kind of group at the age of 22 to move on the rest of my life. You know, I found it at what, like 39, 40. I found this and I'm just like, fuck.
Yeah, you wish you
how my life. Yeah. How would my life have been if I would have found this a long time ago? You know, like how would I have been able to regulate my life? But at the same time, I can't think that way. I was like, I found it now. I get to do what I'm doing now, and I get to do my life now, and I can start it from this point forward. But yeah, it's been really interesting.
So what during those Exalted Warrior retreats, what do you actually do?
So this is not through Exalted Warrior. This is through Kodawari. I do a Sovereign Saturday. It's at one Saturday a month. I have about 12 guys, and when we go, I teach a really, really, really aggressive hot power, and the music's also pretty aggressive. It's mostly just like everything has a meaning, right? And I helped my partner and I, Keith Kemp, we both came up with this magical formula, and it seems to work very well. But they do a hot power between 95 to 101 degrees in a room, and we breathe them first. So we do a lot of Wim Hof at the front end. We talk to first. We integrate them. They all introduce themselves, ask why they're here. We let them know kind of what's going to be going on. We kind of leave some to surprise, right? Just have them make sure they keep an open mind, because sometimes this stuff can seem like wizardry shit, and it's just like us breathing. And I don't think anybody's actually focused on their breath in life, other than just like, unless someone tells them to. Like when we breathing on the rifle range, or you're breathing like you've been taught to breathe a certain way. But this was so from the hot power, and after I breathe them in the beginning. They do their hot power, which is extremely hard. Going into another breath work session, then we go right into like a 40-degree ice bath. Mm-hmm. So they're all sitting there about ice bath for about 5 minutes, and then we send them into a 230-degree sauna for about 15 to 20 minutes, depending on what it is. And we go back and forth from that. We ask some pretty intrusive questions. Like my last group, I was like, "What is the hardest challenge you ever had to deal with in your life?" And a lot of them would be like, "I was abused. My father died," or just a bunch of stuff would just like really change their life, and not for a good way, right? So I give them an opportunity in the heat. And the heat, what exposure does is gets them to the point. If you're at a point in your life where you're just extremely frustrated, you're just like, I don't give a fuck, I'm just going to tell you everything on my mind. It gets them to that point immediately. So like they're hot as fuck, sitting in 230-degree sauna. And I ask them intrusive questions. And it just verbal diarrhea comes out of their mouth. The first thing that comes to their head is verbal diarrhea. And it's just like, it's not diarrhea, rather it's just like they just give you the stuff that's bothering them most in that moment, in that time. when it comes to the ice is a good teacher, because the cold is the more you struggle, the harder it becomes. The more you just let go and breathe, the easier it is. It's nice and smooth. I'm a goddamn polar bear. I love the cold. And it's taught me so much in my life already. And I just, like, sitting in traffic doesn't fucking bother anymore. Or just like going to a certain area where people like I'm not comfortable around, just like I don't care anymore. It's just like I'm in my own fucking place, and that's what it does. It really sets me in a mindset that is just content, and I'm okay, and I don't have to be like worrying about what the things that are around me, because I'm just worried about what's in my bubble. Then after those cold plunges, we do an hour and 15-minute breathwork session with my friend Keith and I, and it's impactful. Like, we've had guys come out of the breathwork session just breathing. We're just cycling different styles of breath, and at the end, you have guys come out there just like, what the fuck was that? Like, I don't understand. Like, I just feel, they come out and they're like, I feel completely calm, at ease, and peaceful right now, and I haven't felt this in years. Or like, you'll have guys just like, they'll get a slight little bit of DMT release, natural DMT, and they're just like, I had a conversation in my head with my grandmother. Or like, they'll have all kinds of things. By the time they finish, it's just like, it's a release of one, just a bunch of stress. I had a guy recently who lost his house in a fire from a plumber who burned his house to the ground, and the plumber's insurance company didn't even cover the house. So they're looking. So like, it was interesting that he talked about it, and like how he lost his relationship with his father and all kinds of stuff. I'm just like, holy shit. Wow. It's happened in the span of 2 years, and his family's been not living in the house that they burned down. They lost 80% of the shit that they owned. And he was just in tears, and more so in tears that he just doesn't have his father was his best friend, and him and his mom and his father are getting divorced, and it's just a lot of shit was like going down. And he just, after he had his breath session, after the day was over, he's like, I haven't felt this way in a very long time, and I feel, one, empowered, and two, how do I keep doing this? So we found the perfect formula for the Sovereign Saturday, to just like, ideally, these are going to be like resets for guys like that go on retreats. Like, so the retreat's going to be, our first retreat ever is going to be in Owl's Head, New York. It's like right on the Canadian border, but it's going to be in the first weekend of January. And it's going to be all the guys that have been there have already done a Sovereign Saturday, but it's going to be in the middle of fucking winter. And I'm going to fucking walk these guys on trails with just like board shorts and fucking boots and a beanie.
And they're coming up from Florida.
Yeah, they're coming up from Florida. But a lot of these guys know that after doing breath work with me, that it's just like, it's all in your head. Like, going through Wim Hof training was one of the hardest things I've done in my life. And that was extremely hard, because I had to like befriend the cold, but in a way that like people need to understand that like the human body is such an incredible thing. It heals extremely fast, but also there's certain things from our body we can take back. We can take back our breath, right? I can't control my heart rate. It works autonomously. I can't control my gut. It works autonomously as well. And our brain works on all different patterns. But the only thing I can control is how I breathe. So you can sit there every day and breathe just normally and just be fine, right? Like, your body just takes control of that. But if you find a way to control your breath, it's extremely powerful, because then I can control my heart rate, right? And how I train people, and even in the gym or metabolic conditioning or anything, I train them like, hey, how do you breathe? We're gonna treat breathing in 3 different stages, right? The first gear is gear 1. It's nose, right? You should be breathing out of your nose all the time. I mean, like, we breathe, for some reason in society, we found a way to just always breathe out of our mouth, and that's the leading cause of anxiety, the leading cause of, taking SSRIs, frustration, thermal regulation, everything. Our nose is designed to create this nice turbulent cold air to go in and go on our lungs, but also learning to breathe out of our nose actually changes the structure of your mouth, which people don't know. So if you find a way, like sometimes I sleep at night, I sleep with my fucking mouth taped, because, I need to start breathing out of my nose more. But that's gear 1. You should be there at gear 1 all the time. When you hit gear 2, it's like my heart, my conditioning is going up higher, right? So I'm bringing nose, mouth, right? In the nose, out the mouth. Gear 3 is mouth. That's like where most people in the United States are actually, in the world, they're probably just sitting at. They're freaking in survival mode the whole entire time.
Every day they're like that.
Sitting in traffic. I fucking hate that guy. It's all the mouth. And you're just like, then once I started breathing out of my nose more, I was like, holy shit, like this is serious. And also we breathe too much as a human race. Like we don't need to take in so much breath all the time. But I learned all that through my time in Wim Hof and my time going through just diving into more of what's going on with breath work. But yeah, these things are essential for just us living a fucking more joyful life. And at the end of the day, if I can tell anybody, I think I told you last time, is if we can't experience depression and sadness, which is a normal, healthy thing, there's no way we can experience what happiness and joy feels like. You have to feel the whole spectrum. And it's normal to be sad and depressed, but learning how to notice these things is probably the key point to your life, is just notice and just ask yourself why. I mean, why do I feel this way? Why do I feel like fucking shit? And have someone in your life you can just sit there and talk to who listen, not so much ask to fix you, because I don't think you're a fucking problem. You just want to fucking let shit go.
Yeah, just venting to somebody. Because I know I was a captain for a while, and dealing with some of the people that I'm not talking about Indian too. I'm talking about some of the staff. Like there's people now in the bureau that just like cannot handle a bit of stress. I mean,
Oh yeah,
out of their freaking minds. It's like, come on, man, calm down. Like all you're doing today is you're just worrying about paperwork. Let me worry about this other stuff. If I have a problem, I'll come and talk to you about it. And they take it upon themselves to try to fix everything from their office or stomping around and beating on their chest. Oh, listen to me. Not saying I'm some correctional guru, but geez, man, like I know some of the incidents I've been through, it's like I always took that calm approach to go in there and be like, okay, another person, we're dealing with a person for one, because so they're already emotional. The guy behind the cell door or wherever he is, and dealing with him. So okay, let's try to calmly talk to him. You know, sometimes I lose my cool too, because they'd say some pretty off the wall things to you. But being calm, especially in like, you know, a profession like firefighter, police, corrections, anything like that, you have to be calm. If you go in there 100,000 miles an hour, someone's going to screw up. I mean, just like the military, you know that. You go in there, running in there with your head on fire, something bad is probably going to happen. Your plan just goes to shit, you know?
oh yeah. I did realize too. So it was another realization, like probably 10 years ago. Actually, the VA brought it to my attention. I was doing like a TBI test, and then like I did a TBI test and some attention span stuff, and like they had a lot of things coming at me fast, and I had to like see if I saw numbers in them. And he's like, the guy was like, you handle things in really high stress situations extremely well. Like you're a high performer when things are really shit hits the fan. You're the guy they want to talk to. And I think that's really common with people like with childhood trauma, and also just like we're military, right? We have to operate at a high level when shit really hits the fan. And like you did, like you have to like push my emotions. Like that's when I like really found out where like I was like my way, the way I compartmentalize a lot of things is good and bad, right? I can have really good compartmentalization. Was like I can know what the mission is, I know what I have to do, and push all the other shit way aside so I can handle what the problem is right in front of me. I think you do that very well. You've been doing that for so long that you're just really good at it. It's like I don't need everything to be high stress right now. I need even just like be locked in. I'm like, hey, what's going on with this person? What's going on with this person? Outside that, don't bring your shit in here because it's not going to solve anything.
Oh yeah.
So, and then again, therein lies the problem. That like compartmentalization is a double-edged sword. On one side of the sword, it does very well. It's a swift attack, right? On the other side, it's the back end story, right? Like we've dumped all this shit that we didn't want to deal with at the time, and later on, that shit comes right back in the hole, and we don't know how to deal with that shit. And like when it comes back at you, and if it's like, and I say I don't like using trigger, but when things happen, if you hear something or you're like see something happen, and just like it turns that one screw notch a little bit tighter, it's like what the fuck, and you're like all this shit that you didn't deal with comes right back into that cup, right? And you're just like, oh my God, this is too much. Like I had a perfect example. I was in the hospital working at the time, and I had this nurse. We had one of our regular drunks came by the hospital. He was just the fire department dropped him off. I knew when he was drunk, he was just a violent drunk. And I was like, all right, I know how to keep my eye on it. And I had like 6 rooms. I was just like going to each one and helping the nurses out. So I stopped by this one room, and I was checking up on the nurse, and this drunk had this fucking nurse up by her throat on his forearm with her feet off the ground. And I just picked him up and I threw him across the room, and I just like told the nurse, get the fuck out of here. He's like, who the fuck are you? And he just went to fucking swing at me, and I just did a nice little duck under and dropped him on his head. And I did what I had to do in that heartbeat. I didn't fight back after. I just, I stopped the whole situation. I just left the room. The nurse manager saw what happened, but it was a weird situation, right? But that situation it was that screw loose that just unloaded all the rest of the shit that I hadn't been dealing with. And it took me like, I don't know, a week to fucking fully calm down from all that shit, because I didn't know how to deal with all that energy that was just like, oh shit. Like I had to talk to one of my best friends. He's literally my only family. He's Matt. He's a TPD cop. And I called him and I was just like, dude, I don't know what to do with this. He's like, well, let's go hit a fucking bag for a couple hours and just like get as much of this energy out as possible. I was like, all right. So we went late at night to the gym we used to go to, and I just hit a punching bag for hours. It took a little bit of the edge off, but it was just like, I felt like my blood pressure was high. My fucking heart rate was high. I couldn't sleep. And it was just like all the stuff I couldn't deal with was dumping into that fucking cup. And he had the same thing. Like during the pandemic, there was a riots going on, and he was one of the cops on the street, and had cinder blocks being thrown at his car and getting spit on, and his partner ended up getting shot at, and he had to go through that whole scenario of just like controlling the whole scenario as the single police officer on scene, and dealing with his partner got shot in the plate, just above the plate, and he was just like, it's like he was wound up for weeks, and I was not only almost losing his friend, but also having to deal with all that and dealing with cops that didn't know what to fucking do in this situation. So it was just really fucking weird. And I was like, all right, bro, let's go hit the fucking bag and let's go talk it out. Like, let's see what the fuck's going on. And he's like, and it's the same thing. It's like, we don't know what to do with trauma. Like both him and I were raised in a really violent household. And then we went to the military, which compounded on top of that. And then we both went to jobs that were just like, didn't help the trauma at all either. He's still a police officer. I'm not in the fire department anymore, but he's starting to learn that like, I can't run away from these problems anymore. Like I have to deal with them as I come up and ask myself why, and to have somebody to talk to. And we've worked through it, and he's doing a lot better about it. Work through mine. And none of these problems are fully going to go away. It's how your response to those problems are going to happen moving forward, right? Even with you, I think dealing with all those stuff that you dealt with in jail and the prison system is just like, it's compounded, right? Like deal with this. You're always going to have these memories. Those memories aren't never going to go away, but it's how we deal with our response to these, and in those moments of like levity, that it's just like, how do I deal with that? I've helped Matt with breath, and he's actually not breathing out of his mouth anymore. He's even shooting better on the range. So it's just like, it's just tribe, man. If I were going to say like, what is the one thing that's helped me out the most is my support system.
Right.
Who is in my support system, and who are these people that I know I can count on that just are not, they're not there to fucking like fix me. They're there to fucking listen. And we get out of this world alone, but we don't get through it alone. And I get a lot of what I learned from is from Sebastian Unger's book Tribe. It was such a good book because the way he talked about how we're just in society, we feel like we can handle everything on our own, and we can't. Like we can't. There's no fucking way. It takes a lot of people to get one life to its end, and I don't think people understand that. I think they can handle everything by themselves. And I'm just like, okay, man, good luck. I've done that for years, and it didn't do shit for me. Like I kept my wife and my kids away from all the shit that I was going through, and it only made shit worse. And it's, it caused me like 2 divorces already. Like, you know what I mean?
Same with me.
Yeah. And I'm not saying I was the only problem, but I was the majority of the fucking problem, right? And I can definitely come to the realization that like I had a lot of fucking problems, and it doesn't. If anything, if we're learning anything from this whole podcast, is 1, listen; 2, have people you can talk to, you can trust, and because we all have trust issues. I mean, that's probably why half the people in the fucking world are micromanagers. They don't know who to fucking trust. Mm-hmm. You can't handle this paperwork because of this. I'm like, well, if you don't trust me, we can't do our jobs. And like if I were to go in a corporate world right now, like nobody trusts anybody. Like my girlfriend right now, she's in the corporate world and like has fucking trust issues with everybody that she's working with. Not everybody, but the majority of the leadership, right? Because everybody's trying to bolster everybody else, and just like, okay, this is
what's in it for me? Yeah. What's my next step? Yeah. Or who do I need to step over to get ahead? Yeah.
Everybody wants to look good. The ego of people out here is ridiculous, and you saw that in the military too. Like once people got a little bit of, that's what Mike Tyson says. He goes, you really know who somebody is, just give them a bunch of power and see what happens. That's true. I was like, I couldn't be more true. Like I couldn't have a lieutenant that was more fucking power hungry than having a whole platoon of fucking people to just fucking berate and fucking treat like shit,
Yeah, we've seen that a lot because like the bureau. I mean, as small as it is, you see there's a lot of people involved, but there's just that core group that sell. And they go higher. Some shouldn't because power hungry. They're egotistical. They're just absolutely. Most of them are pretty much out of their minds. And I've always seen that throughout my career, especially when I was a lieutenant, and then when I was a captain, and then when I was employee development manager. I've seen that throughout the years, and I know my last spot when I was a captain in Chicago, I left being a captain because I was just kind of like sick and tired of just like, all right, I've done my best to try to train you guys, work together, to not be the way most of you are right now. Because a lot of times what I saw were people, their egos were so out of control that they would not even listen. They wouldn't even sit down and listen to what you had to say as their supervisor. And you would say, hey, this is what I just need you to do, just this one little piece of paperwork. Oh, it's not my job. It's not my job. It's your job. It's like, you signed up for this. This is your job now. It's just, and I wish people could. I know I did. I took advantage of it. Knowing our chief psychologist at the prison, I would like once or twice a day, I'd either go to his office or he'd stop by my office. We'd sit there and talk, vent what we had to vent, and then the people that I always had trouble with. And you look at them, man, their freaking lives are a fucking mess. Fucking drinking, they're just abusing themselves in every possible way. It's like, hey, man, just take a breath, calm down, just relax for a minute. Let's talk about what's going on. And they wouldn't even want to hear. So, I mean, a lot of my lieutenants were like, once in a while, if something happened, I'd get on the radio and I'd talk so calmly on the radio. They'd be like, how do you talk so calm? I said, I don't need to yell at anybody. I mean, honestly, the whole time I was probably a captain, I don't think I've ever. I don't. I mean, maybe a handful of times where I had to actually yell at like a lieutenant. I actually raised my voice. Most of the time, I was just very calm and just talk to him normal.
Yeah.
Some of it worked, some of it didn't. You know, people just I don't know. Some people are just like that, man. They just don't want to. They just want that hard road, you know.
I think I don't. I really don't. I know for a fact that people just don't know what to do with and they're just emotionally unstable. Like just they don't like once you get to a point when you're like either so frustrated or so just worked up, there's no talking people out of that. Like the only way to just like it's what do we do pre-issue and what do we do post-issue, right? There's nothing. We didn't do anything in the military for either one of those, right? Nothing.
Nothing.
You like no, even in the police department, fire department, in your job, they don't do pre-briefs and post-briefs. I mean, maybe about the situation at hand, but nothing that has to do with how are you mentally during these situations and how can we get you to a place where you can like understand one, that the person behind that fucking gate is just as much fucking shit in your head, like dealing with some shit that you are right now, that you're scared because you don't know what the fuck's going to happen when you go in there, right? And I know, but there's nobody talking to people after, like, all right, how'd you guys feel about that? Like nobody talks.
Yeah. Like,
And
no one cares about how you feel either. So no one really gave a shit how you felt.
And that's a problem, right? Like it's when you don't talk about the human condition, we just become fucking robots. And we're just consumers, right? We don't mean anything to anybody else. We're not like, we don't cared for. And I think a lot of people who really do care, who are really passionate about their jobs, are almost pushed aside a lot. They're almost like those people are just like, here, you care too much. This is just a 9 to 5. Like I used to tell people when I was in the hospital, I was like, hey, there were nurses that come in. I'm like, I fucking hate my job. I was like, I don't want you here because that fucking patient you see is going to fucking feel that. That patient you deal with this day is going to fucking feel that. They're going to know that you're not genuine in what your response is to like, oh, hey, how you having a good day? I'm about to put this needle in you. You're like you're just not genuine about that. Like you don't care about what this person's feeling like. And this person is just another fucking paycheck to them. And there's a lot of people that get into certain jobs with the wrong intentions. If you get into a medical field and you're only doing it for money,
yeah, you're in the wrong business.
You're to me, you're a complete asshole. If you get into the correction system and you just like, you want to see some change happen to some of these guys that are in there, because you like, some of these guys, their lives are ruined because they made fucking that one bad decision, And if you're not there to look after the people who are looking after these people, like you're a fucking asshole.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, there's a lack of care in our society right now. It's just fucking, it's terrible. And I don't like if I were to tell you my brother Matt, he would tell you, why did you become a cop? And his answer is so genuine to the fact that I wish I had like a recorder on him and I can just put him on TPD's Instagram, right? Because he goes, it's like, why do you want to be a cop? It's like, I just want to protect the innocent of the people of the city, but I also want to take bad guys off the street. I'm like, he cares about people. Like he doesn't approach, like I've seen his body cam footage. He doesn't approach people in a fucking hurtful way. He approaches something because he fucking cares. Like, I want to make your neighborhood better, but the only way to do that is if you can help me help you. Mm-hmm. And there's not enough people out there like that. And it's bothersome. Like people are very selfish in the point where they just want to get their own way through a lot of things. And that's what the frustration is. That's what the frustration is with people who are just like getting fucking crazy. That's not my job. That's not my job. If who fucking cares? Just fucking do it so you can help the rest of the people out. If you cared enough, then you would just do what the fucking captain has to say so we can just get to what we need to get to and get the things that we need. So
Have you seen, do you think like in the, the last 3 years, do you think it's gotten worse? I mean, I see it all the time. People are off fucking rockers.
I sit in a sauna every Friday and I use it as my stage. I sit in the sauna for 3 hours, but I do the same thing, cold plunge sauna. And I use it as a stage to develop my, my speaking skills, but also develop like how I generate questions for the Sovereign Saturday. So it's very much a moment for me to practice my trade, right? And I asked my last group, when was the last time you really needed to help and you didn't ask for it because you thought you were going to be a burden? And it was interesting how much the pandemic came up. I mean, I'm going to say like 70% of the responses out of the 3 different hours from 3 different groups all said something out of the pandemic has either ruined their life or their life is forever changed and not the same because of it, or just like things just like family members died and because they didn't get to see them die, and they felt like they didn't get any closure, or like so many things. And I really think when we roll back down the history books, we're gonna see a lot of this whole time period. It's gonna be in the history books as like one of the worst time periods in life. It's almost like the bubonic plague is just happened these past 3 years, because there's more people that died of suicide and lost their lives over like became poor, or like did really fucked up shit because they thought they were doing something right, because of this whole thing. So it was really, I think this whole time period is fucking terrible for a lot of people, but it was also good for some people. It was good for people because it slowed their life down enough where they saw the bad shit that's going on in their life they didn't notice before. And I want to say the divorce rate went up like 100% during the pandemic. I know I got divorced during the beginning of the pandemic, but it was just, I think this is a weird time period for sure.
Yeah.
Weird time period.
It mentally screwed with people bad.
Oh yeah. I think not to mention that really created an echo chamber of people just to fear monger. Right. We just lived in this whole weird chapter of fear, and everybody was just they doubled down on the fear. I was like, holy shit, like, is nobody not believing anything anybody says? I don't know why you're watching the news if you don't believe anything, right? Like, but it was just, I laugh a lot because I just watched this. I was driving over here today, and I saw some guy on a moped with a mask on. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? He's on a moped, open air, right? With no helmet, but had a mask on. I was like, if this isn't dumb, I don't know what is. Like, this guy had no helmet, and especially the streets in Florida are not very safe to ride a motorcycle, let alone a scooter.
Right.
But he was wearing no helmet, but he fucking for sure, God, I'm gonna protect myself from all the fucking bacteria around here.
Was it N95 or was it?
No, it's a fucking goddamn regular mask. I was like, what the fuck, man? But that is literally that is what our society has come up to. That person right there. And like, I can only imagine what that guy's thinking about. Like, my safety is not the helmet, but for sure,
definitely the mask, the paper mask.
For sure, the mask. Like, this is absurd. But yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, and just think, you're in Florida. Think how bad Illinois is. I mean, Illinois is like so freaking liberal. Like, everyone is scared to death of, the governor or the mayor, whoever. Somebody said something that, hey, we have to do this to protect ourselves. It's like, hell no, I think we're gonna be all right, man. I think I had the stupid ass COVID crap. I think I had it twice. I know I was diagnosed once. I'm pretty sure I had it twice. And it's like, man, people are just scared to freaking death. It's like just going into the store. It's like, I don't have a mask on for what? I mean, dude, you're gonna be all right. Ain't nobody standing next to you. I mean, even people now I still see people coming into the gym. They're coming into the gym with their mask on. It's like,
oh yeah. I saw a
Joy
lady.
rolling today. Yeah.
I saw a lady go into a yoga class with a mask on, come out, go into my sauna, take her mask off, and just even more close. You're closer to people then put her mask off as she goes into the ice plunge. I'm like,
Yeah.
why? Like, I don't understand. I'm just like, my mind is blown by your incompetence. This is like, you just feel like this is an impenetrable barrier of your fucking face, and like, I can't. I just you have to. I don't. There's no point in me talking. I'm just gonna like inside in my head. I'm just like, this is dumb. Every time I go to a place, I just want to like walk up to this person like, you think you're safe, but you're not.
You forgot your helmet.
I know, man. This is wild. I don't know. It's a crazy times right now. Like, we're living some wild times. I've been doing for a while there. I was doing some help with evac from people from helping a buddy running some phone calls and looking at intel from on Instagram for all these people in Ukraine. But even that's a fucking shit show, and I stopped doing that because I was getting too emotionally involved into it.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah.
And it was just like, I can't do this anymore, man. Pay is good, but I can't. I just can't. Staying up all hours of the night trying to help people in Ukraine was just not a thing for me. But yeah, if there's like, stay in your lane is what I can tell people.
Right. Yep.
Stay in your fucking lane.
All right, man. So let's do final thoughts from you. Hear what you got.
Final thoughts. Be a good active listener. You know, try to trust the people you can have in your life and your tribe, and be a good fucking person, man. Just how fucking hard is it to be a good person? Just try to put your other people before you, but also take care of yourself at the same time. You can find me at strong_surfing_yogi on Instagram. My email is michael.hernandez@exaltedwarrior.com. So you can reach out to me for any needs. If you guys are into anybody wants to stop by and do a summer Saturday, please let me know. Gladly know. I'm also still a trainer. I do a lot of remote training still for a lot of people. A lot of strength conditioning, CrossFit, metabolic conditioning. I do a lot of conjugate stuff. So that's available, and you can find me at the same email. But yeah, thanks for having me, Glenn.
Hey, no problem, man. It was good seeing you again. Hey, next time I'm down that way, I'm going to stop by. I definitely want to hit you up on that sauna and cold treatment.
Please do.
I think it's going to hurt, but I'll do it.
Hey, man. We love shit that hurts,
Yes, sir.
All right, man.
See
you later, man.